Hi everyone, my name is Tamit Saleh and welcome to a US Open update for you guys. So we've had the first week of the US Open completed now. Some major shocks, of course. Novak Djokovic is out of the US Open. Some major implications to the Grand Slam race and the week's at number one. He was in fact booed off the court as he retired against Wawrinka, something I thought was, it just lacked respect for a 16-time Grand Slam champion. We'll focus a bit more on that. If you haven't already, then please do subscribe, as I do release weekly tennis content as well as additional videos during big tournaments like the US Open, for instance. My last videos was about Sumit Nagal, the new rising Indian superstar, and also I gave my predictions for the US Open. You might want to see how that's playing out. But yeah, in this video I just want to update you guys on what's happened in the US Open so far. So without further ado, let's roll the intro.
Here he is again. That's astonishing.
So the big talking point is, of course, Novak Djokovic is out of the US Open. We'll begin there first. So this whole US Open, we've been hearing that he's had a bit of a shoulder injury. It's a case of will he withdraw, will he not? But then he was still playing matches and winning pretty comfortably in straight sets as well. And then, of course, he came across Stan Wawrinka. Stan Wawrinka has a record against Novak, a pretty good record, especially in the Grand Slams. In the head-to-heads, he's quite far behind. But in the Grand Slams lately, he beat Novak in the 2015 French Open final and again in the 2016 US Open final, which is in fact the last Grand Slam that has been won by someone not in the big three. So coming into this match, personally, I still had Novak Djokovic as the favourite despite the injury concern, as of course Stan the man, Wawrinka, he's coming back from a injury layoff himself. So I thought Novak, despite his problems, would win. But I was I don't want to use the word shocked, but I was very impressed rather with the way Wawrinka was playing. He was like back to his old form. Some of the shots he was making, incredible. And he just seems to be able to find another gear when he faces Novak Djokovic against, the likes of Federer or Nadal. It's, something about Djokovic makes him play to his full potential. He went two sets up, and then he went a break up in the third set, which resulted in Djokovic pretty much promptly retiring from the match. Now, look, I know, he's retired in the past before and he has this bit of a history with it. But the way the crowd booed him off the court, I thought it was just unacceptable. Wawrinka himself has come out and said that this is not how you should treat a amazing player like Novak. He's also labelled him as a good friend, and he just said that if a player retires through injury, and that is not the way you should send him off the court. Now, I can understand why the crowd did this. They probably wanted to see, the full match, and with Novak retiring, it was obviously cut short. But, from my perspective, many people, you can say that he denied Wawrinka of that winning moment. But personally, if he's injured, he's injured. And the thing we have to remember is, if you're winning, then naturally you don't feel the injury as much. However, if you're losing, of course, you feel it a lot more. And why he probably retired rather is, look, he knew at two sets and a breakdown, the match was probably gone. So rather than risk further injuring that shoulder of his, there was really at that point no point for him to go on, as like I've said, he risked injuring the shoulder even more, which could then mean the rest of his season is finished. Djokovic is going for the week's at number one record, which is held by Roger. He needs that number one spot for just under a year. So it was probably in his mind, in the back of his mind as well, that to be able to recover, it was probably best not finishing the match just for the sake of finishing the match. The match at that point was over. Now, we also have to give credit to Wawrinka. Yes, he was facing an injured Djokovic. However, I feel like even if Djokovic played to his full potential, he would have struggled beating Wawrinka because, like I've said before, Wawrinka has this thing against Novak and the matchup seems to suit him pretty well as well. This isn't the first time Novak Djokovic has, had to face a tough crowd. Just even in this US Open, a fan came into his training and was telling him to retire and so on, and they had a bit of back and forth there. In previous tournaments, he's had to, like even the Wimbledon final, where the crowd was just pretty much 99% pro Federer. So yeah, Djokovic, he's pretty used to facing tough crowds like this, so it's not anything new. But I still feel like he does lack a lot of the respect. Like I appreciate the fact that a lot of the fan base in tennis is Federer or Nadal, and of course Djokovic being the third man, there's not much room to show him that support. But you need to still show support to someone who's won 16 Grand Slams, which is more than anyone in the history of tennis other than Federer and Nadal. So I feel like more respect needs to be shown to Novak Djokovic. Now, moving on from this topic, of course, Stan Wawrinka is through to the US Open quarterfinals, and he will face Daniil Medvedev. Now, Medvedev himself, he's been getting a lot of boos from the crowd in this tournament. It all sparked off against, he was playing against Feliciano Lopez, and he sort of aggressively took the towel off a ball boy. And we all know that, myself included, you need to show respect to the ball boys, the volunteers and everyone that's making your life easy on the court. And yeah, since then, the crowd have gone against him, and Medvedev he's not shown any signs of asking for forgiveness. Rather, he's playing around with them, and he's mocking them as well. So after the match, the interview, it was quite interesting. He was saying that because of what the crowd booing him and so on, it was giving him energy and an extra desire to win. He was saying to the crowd that he was thinking of withdrawing, and when he was a set and a breakdown against Kopfer, sorry if I forgive my pronunciation, he was considering to withdraw, but then the crowd helped him. So that was like a bit of a slap, for instance, in the face of the people booing him. So yeah, that is, I believe, a great quarterfinal matchup, Medvedev Wawrinka. In the other quarterfinal from the top half, it will be Roger Federer versus Grigor Dimitrov. Now, is this the return of Grigor Dimitrov? He had a very good season in 2017, and then sort of, where he won the World Tour finals, etc. But then he sort of fell away since then. Some very poor results, especially leading up to the US Open this year as well. But he seemed to find a bit of form. Can he beat Roger? I personally doubt it. I feel like Federer will beat Dimitrov here. Federer himself had a bit of a shaky start to the US Open. He was winning in 4 sets the first couple of rounds, but in the last 2 rounds against, I believe, Dan Evans and then David Goffin, comfortable straight sets victory. So he seems to got his groove back on. Now, look, if we have a Wawrinka-Dimitrov semi-final, I personally find that quite funny because they seem to always face in the first round of tournaments. We had it in both Cincinnati and Montreal as well, leading up to the US Open first round matches. So if they face each other again in the semis, that'd be quite funny. Personally, if I had to pick, I would probably say Federer. Now, look, if Wawrinka can play like the way he does against Djokovic, then it should be a pretty comfortable win against Medvedev, who is a fairly similar type of player to Novak. But, I can't rule out Medvedev as well. And I don't know how Wawrinka will play. So if I had to pick, I would say Federer Medvedev in that semi-final. In the bottom half, now they're still playing. I'm recording this on a Monday. They are still wrapping up the round of 16 matches. We have had one result so far. A bit of a shock personally. Berrettini has beaten Rublev to reach the quarterfinals. Now Rublev, he beat Federer in Cincinnati. He beat Tsitsipas in the first round. He beat Nick Kyrgios in the third round. So he's been gaining a bit of steam. But yeah, he's out of the US Open. It's Berrettini, and he will face the winner of either Monfils or Andujar. Personally, if I had to pick, I would probably guess Monfils. In the other round of 16 match that is taking place right now, it is Zverev versus Schwartzman. Now, Zverev, he does get mocked a lot from the tennis community, especially because of the way he plays in the Grand Slams and, a lot of early round exits he's had there. But he's done well this tournament. Round of 16, he's, done pretty well. He should beat Schwartzman, let's be honest. But he is, as I'm recording, he is 2-1 down. So let's see how that goes. Now, I wouldn't count Zverev out just yet because, he is like a 5-set man. Almost like most of his matches go to 5 sets. So that is going on right now. Schwartzman leading 2-1. And they will face the winner of Nadal versus Cilic. Now, of course, you're going to have Rafa Nadal as the major favorite in that match. But, you know, Cilic, he has won a Grand Slam before here in New York. He won the 2014 US Open. But personally, yeah, I can't really look past Nadal. Looking at the quarterfinal lineup, or the projected quarterfinal lineup for the bottom half, could we have our first ever Federer-Nadal showdown in New York? It beggars belief, really, that they have never faced in the US Open in any rounds. So, yeah, I mean, they faced multiple times on all the other Grand Slams, but never in the US Open. It's one that's been, 15 years in the making, and I feel this is the year it's going to happen. If it doesn't happen this year, I can't really see it ever happening. Federer, he needs to beat Dimitrov, and then either Wawrinka or Medvedev to reach the final. Rafa, he's got Cilic, then maybe a Schwartzman Zverev, or a Monfils, Berrettini, and Duhar. So, you know, no major threats in there, especially with Novak out from the top half, and then players like Tsitsipas, Team, maybe Kyrgios, who always seems to play well against Rafa. You know, they're all out in the bottom half. So a major chance for Rafa versus Roger in the US Open final. That would be my predicted final now. I know I made a video predicting Rafa will win the US Open. However, with Novak Djokovic now out of the US Open, it does open the way a little bit for Federer. If I had to pick now, and I feel like, once again, fatigue will be important. So it depends, you know, are they playing easy 3-set matches, or are they having to play grinding 5-set matches? So I feel if both are fresh going into this final, personally, I am going to have Roger slightly ahead of Rafa. He has won the last 6 out of 7 times they have faced. His only loss coming on the clay, which was in Roland Garros earlier this year, where, you know, I mean, we know Rafa's gonna win that match. So I believe if they both make it to the final fresh, then Roger, for me, is now the new favorite for the US Open. Rafa, of course, out of all the hardcourt tournaments, the US Open is probably his best, as it is a slow hardcourt in New York. But yeah, I cannot wait. And the great thing now about all of these slams is it's not a case of a player winning just the US Open or just the Wimbledon. History is on the line now. Every single slam for probably the next 2-3 years, where the big three are still around at the top of their games, these are all crucial. As you know, Roger's on 20, Rafa's on 18, Novak is on 16. So this is a major opportunity for Roger to add to his Grand Slam tally, or even Rafa to close the gap. I believe if Rafa wins it, then he will almost certainly overtake Roger's count of 20. As you know, I think he will win at least 2 more French Opens as well. And yeah, Roger, if he gets to 21, then has he put Djokovic out of reach? Who knows? So that is one thing I cannot wait for. I'm going to wrap it up there. Like always, please do leave a comment if you've agreed with me, disagreed with me. Share your thoughts. I do love reading everything you have to say. I do respond to most, if not all, of your comments. And as always, if you've enjoyed this video, please do leave a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for future content. Thank you very much.
Game, set, and match. Game, set, and